Westminster. You're all current students, alumni. Welcome, part of the family. So this is part of the What It Takes series, and today we're looking at resilience. This is the second event of the year so far, and there's going to be more events available. There's another one in a week's time. So my name is Justin Haroon, and I am one of the academics and researchers here at Westminster. I run the Centre for Resilience, which is a research community that brings together working with organisations and teams on resilience, but also looks at ageing and biology and resilience, looks at pathology and resilience, and finally looks at community health and well-being. So we're over in Cambridge bringing together scientists, public health practitioners, psychologists. So feel free to connect with us if you're interested in that work. Before I introduce our speaker, just some housekeeping. This talk is being recorded and it will be made available on YouTube, and we're going to send a link around to everyone so you can watch it later, and feel free to share that with your peers and your colleagues. If you don't want to be on camera, please if you just make sure you sit somewhere where you won't be on camera. We've also set up a Slido page, so there'll be a QR code come up and you'll be able to ask questions on the Slido, and I'll be able to see those and pass those questions on to Alasdair at the end of the talk. And obviously you'll have to put your hand up as well and ask a question in person. But if you're a bit shy, you can use Slido. Questions will happen at the end of the talk, so if you've got a burning question, just remember it and ask Alasdair at the end of the question. There'll be a networking opportunity at the end, some refreshments and a chance to talk with each other, ask questions of myself, of Alasdair, any of us. So feel free to stay around and network. And now to introduce the speaker. We're really delighted to introduce you to Alasdair Pettigrew. And he's going to be sharing some insights into resilience. I've had a look at the slide deck, and I think you're in for a real treat. I think it's I really enjoy just reading it, so you're going to enjoy this. This is a brief cut-down version of Alasdair's achievements in his career. There's a lot, and it's really impressive. So Alasdair's career has included working as an engineer and as a consultant with IBM, providing services in technology and businesses across numerous industries and industrial sectors. In 2012, Alasdair made a significant career switch to become an entrepreneur. For 6 years, Alasdair headed up Boxar, a software as a service company that models complex systems. He and his team scored significant sales and successful implementation organizations such as Airbus, Boeing, Raytheon, and also the US Navy. And currently, Alasdair is the CEO of MeOmics, an early-stage biotech company promising to transform the treatment of severe mental illness, so something that's really pressing and relevant right now. Alasdair led a successful pre-seed campaign that raised $700,000, including angel investment and an Innovate UK grant award, spinning the company out of Cardiff University and preserving the IP ownership. It's a really impressive thing to do in a higher education institution. During his presentation, Alasdair will summarise what he has learned from the challenges and the transitions during his career, and provide some advice and some really clear take-home practical measures and ideas, not just theoretical concepts from what I've seen. So Alasdair will go through the presentation. Any questions, feel free to ask them at the end. And I'm going to pass over to Alasdair now.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming along and giving me the opportunity to say a few words. I took the decision to use some of my own photographs on these slides. So there's a little side hustle going on here of trying to guess where these pictures have been taken. So just shout out if you have a guess. That one's quite hard because it's a sunset, but that was from the east coast of the South Island of New Zealand. sorry, West Coast, South Island of New Zealand, so that was actually a sunset. And I put that in there because when I studied here at the University of Westminster, which was the Polytechnic, or Polytechnic of Central London, actually when I was here, had a fabulous time. I did mechanical engineering. And when I left, I headed straight off for a year's travelling, and that photograph was one of the results of that. So, I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to just share with you really some very personal perspectives, some lessons that I've learned and ideas that I've developed over the years. As you can see, it's been a few years since I was here, so you're probably thinking, oh, what's this old dude got to tell me? And I'm sure if I was sitting in your place, I'd be thinking the same, but time goes so quickly, let me tell you. And just really, I want this to be as interactive as possible as well. So do shout out, do challenge me. These are just my thoughts, my ideas. I'm absolutely not an expert on any of this. I'm not qualified to talk about personal mental health or to give you medical advice on fitness or any of the things I'm going to talk about in this presentation. So do bear with me. It's just a personal perspective on how I hope that I've managed to develop some resilience. And shout out as well if you've got any questions. So just to start off with a quick bio. Yes, I studied here mechanical engineering. I went into industry as a corporate guy. And worked as in the aircraft industry on fast jets for 5 years, and then got really interested in technology actually, and how to develop those aircraft as opposed to the aircraft themselves was what really floated my boat. Went into consumer products and then realised that making that technology work in business is quite hard to do. So I joined IBM as a business advisor, as a consultant, and I did that for about 11 years and then switched into software sales for another 4 years. So 15 years in IBM, 22 years as a corporate guy, and had a good time and earned some decent money, especially in software sales. That was at a time when selling software you could get quite rich at it. So I kind of built up a little buffer to allow me to go into the entrepreneurial world, which I think was probably too late. I would definitely encourage any and all of you to be entrepreneurs if you feel inspired that way. And I'll talk a little bit about the resilience that you need to be an entrepreneur in this presentation. So what do I hope to achieve from this presentation? Well, as Justin said, just to give you a few ideas, really, a few practical takeaways that you might fit into your lives either now or maybe a little further into the future. And if I leave you with one thing that you take away from this and think, oh, that old dude, he had something that I'll be very happy. I will have achieved my objectives for this evening. I am going to touch on some mental health questions through the session, and I don't know any of you, and you know, I'd like to get to know you, but if you're suffering with anxiety, if you're suffering with any mental health issue, my honest advice is to get help, is to seek help. Don't be afraid, don't be sad indefinitely. You know, you've got to step up and do something about it. So I've put a couple of links on here just in case any of you are suffering, because I am going to touch on subjects which might trigger something in the audience, so I want to be very, very careful about that. And there's a link to Samaritans, which is a good route. There's a couple of links to resources in the university. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there and make sure that no one feels alone and sad. Oh, by the way, that photo was on the River Inn in Austria, and that rapid is known as Inn Shoot. It's one of my passions. I'm going to talk a little bit about passions in life and how important I think they are. So whitewater kayaking, throwing myself down rapids like that is a passion of mine. Would I do that today? That was a few years ago. Well, I like to think so, but the good thing about kayaking is you can always get out and walk around, which definitely appeals to me as a sport, a fear-inducing sport, or and you know, that kind of activity. So I'm going to talk about a few things: outlook and perspective. I'm going to talk about how important that is, managing money, relationships, caring for your mind, caring for your body, finding a passion and a purpose, how important it is to get everything in balance. And then I want us to think about how we define success in life, particularly in this social media world that we've got and that we live in now, and the pressures that induces on all of us, and really how we can think about success in our own lives and the contributions that we're making to the world. And then open discussions. I'd really like to hear your perspectives as well. I really value being challenged and being told that I'm talking a load of rubbish. I won't be offended because all of this is personal opinion. I love taking photos of the moon as well. I don't know why, but if I can take a nice photo of the moon, I will. Okay, so another photo. So you can always look at that if you're finding my words boring, but any ideas on that one? No thoughts? It's a hard one. That's another hard one. That's Lake Kariba in Zimbabwe, and I was there kayaking on the rapids down below Victoria Falls. So I had a splendid time. So outlook and perspective, and how important that is to resilience. Now, I'm going to just do a little audience poll here and see how many people in the audience would describe yourselves as optimistic people. Okay, I'm judging that's probably more than half. How many pessimistic? Oh, okay, 1 or 2 or 3, good. And how many would say, no, I'm realistic? So I'm kind of sitting in between the two. Okay, so a few of the optimists have relegated themselves to realist stuff. That's okay, that's all right. Okay, so I think that this is kind of important to understand yourself, and there's going to be some common themes throughout my presentation about understanding yourself is one of them, and I think knowing what you are in that regard, optimistic, realistic, pessimistic, is really important to get under the skin of that, because it really influences your decision processes. I would say being an optimist is, I'm a dreadful optimist. You know, I mean, I'm right at one end of the spectrum in that regard. And my wife, who I'll mention a few times in this presentation, is kind of the opposite end. She's a pessimist. I think that works really well. Having a unit, and I'm going to talk about relationships and how important they are for resilience. Having a unit where one of you is overly optimistic and the other one is perhaps a little pessimistic can work really well, because it does induce balance and some kind of karma, some kind of yin and yang going on there. There's a huge risk with being an optimist in the entrepreneurial world, in startup world, because it does influence you to make dodgy decisions. It doesn't. You can be pursuing an idea which just isn't going to fly, just because you are too optimistic. So I think it's definitely worth really questioning yourself and challenging yourself on your optimism. I think that being a pessimist is less risky, in that you're less likely to go for that funding which isn't going to deliver the result, or that investment which is too risky. Conversely, being a a pessimist, the danger is that you don't do anything, okay, so that you don't ever take any risks because you're always looking on the dark side. So finding that balance, I think, is really important between overly optimistic and overly pessimistic, and just being brutally honest with yourself. So trying to achieve that realistic perspective, if you like. I'm just going to get my phone. I talk for England, by the way, so, and I really want there to be time for interaction and questions at the end of this, so I'm going to have to cut myself short. And actually, looking at these slides, I was thinking I could probably talk for an hour on each of these. So you're probably quite glad that I'm not going to be doing that. But so the other point I wanted to mention on outlook and perspective is dealing with imposter syndrome. And I'm just going to talk a little bit in this sense. Does everyone know what imposter syndrome is? Has anyone come across that, or has anyone felt that? So just for those that don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's where you find yourself in a situation and you believe you don't belong. Okay, so you feel like you are an imposter. You feel like everyone else knows how to do this. Everyone else has got this down. Everyone else is doing a great job. And what on earth am I doing here? You know, I can't possibly step up. I can't possibly, answer hard questions if they're posed of me. And it's a common complaint. It's a common, it's a common problem, particularly in entrepreneurial world. So, just to give you an idea, I'm in, my home industry is the aircraft industry. I'm a technologist. I specialise in commercialising technology. Generally, I've worked in manufacturing. I've worked in industries of that nature. So I've worked in the Formula One industry. I've worked in automotive industry. I've worked in consumer products. I've never had any background in medicine, in medtech, in biotech, in bioscience. I mean, I was terrible at biology at school. Had the physics and the maths on the engineering side, but I'd never had any bioscience side. I decided after finishing up with my first startup company, I decided to build a portfolio kind of career. And I'm taking on what's the new word, fractional executive work. So you go in and work part-time, makes it more affordable to do interesting projects, work with interesting companies. And I found myself, around about 2020, middle of 2020, I found myself looking for opportunities. So I spoke to my network, and I'm going to talk about relationships in a moment, how important it is to build that network, build relationships with people that don't want anything from you, but they just want to help you. And finding those people is gold dust. And one of my contacts said, there's an opportunity that you might be interested in. Why don't you talk to these professors at Cardiff University and see if you can help them, because they're trying to get a company off the ground. So I got on a call with those guys, and we kind of got on really well. I had a picture of a Harrier on the wall behind me, an aircraft that connected with them, and they were excited by that. And we kind of didn't touch on my background too much. I mean, I said, look, I have no background in medicine, but what I do have is a background in technology and bringing companies to market, and therefore, that was the skill that they were looking for, as opposed to a depth of knowledge in the actual science. And we agreed to work together, and now, as Justin said, we've managed to get the company through our angel funding. What the company does is we take blood samples from schizophrenia patients, we turn those blood samples into stem cells, and from those stem cells we grow neurons, okay? And from those neurons we can detect signals which are indicative of severe mental illness, remarkably. So we've got 41 patient samples, 9 control samples, and we're already growing neurons in our lab, and we're already actually seeing the difference remarkably enough. So we're getting signals already before we've even used our electrodes to detect the electrical signals. And incredibly, what we expect and hope from the published science is to be able to apply therapies in the lab to see how they affect the neurons, to check the effectivity of therapies. So I don't want to go into too much more detail on that, but I'm happy to talk to any of you about the company afterwards. But just to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, I was in Toronto last week meeting with really eminent startup folk and eminent industry people. And I looked around the room at these neuroscientists and these people who are growing companies and working deeply in this industry all their careers. And believe me, that was imposter syndrome. And I think it's inevitable that you're going to suffer with imposter syndrome at some point in your careers, particularly if you go off-piste, if you go off in a direction that's other than the normal kind of career path. I think imposter syndrome is almost an inevitability. And as I say on the slide, just rejoice. Everyone gets it. Everyone suffers from it. And I have to say, sometimes it can be quite beneficial. It puts you on your edge. It kind of makes you work a little bit harder, perhaps, than you would otherwise. And it always makes me think, I don't know, I don't want to get political, but I kind of wish that Liz Truss had a bit more imposter syndrome, frankly, because I think that might have been better for all of us if she just had a bit more of that imposter syndrome, but she didn't, and here we are. So, yeah, imposter syndrome, I think it's something just not to be afraid of, something to embrace a little bit, and something to almost smile at and say, you know, at that point in Toronto last week, and this is hot off the press, I mean, I just looked around the room, I gave myself a pat on the back, honestly, because I just thought, here you are, you're mixing it, yet inevitably you've got imposter syndrome, but I'm here, you know, I'm here, and we won through, by the way. We could have been kicked off at that point. They're quite brutal, they cut a lot of people. It's called the Creative Destruction Lab, which is a prestigious accelerator for startups. We got 2, if you don't get any mentors putting their hand up, then you're cut, you're off the program. We got 2, so I was really proud of that. So imposter syndrome or not, we were still successful, and I was very pleased about that. Any thoughts? Do shout out. Don't be afraid, or put the questions on the link. Has anyone suffered imposter syndrome here already? Say a word about it. Anyone? Just shout out. How did you overcome it?
Just over time, like even with master degree at the university, that was my dream for years, and study abroad, and still like I can't believe it because like, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's like every time when I achieve something, it's something in my head that tells me like, are you good enough for that?
That's it. That is the very definition of imposter syndrome. And believe in yourself. You know, be strong, be confident, not overly so. If you know, that's where you have to be realistic as well. If you're not cutting the mark, then do something about it. Be honest with yourself, but also don't succumb to the fear of imposter syndrome. I'm going to talk about some. Yes.
So when you were in Toronto, how did you realize that was happening to you? Like, how did you stop and say, this is not right?
I suppose I've been in the startup environment for 11 years now. So I think I've just got used to it. I think it is just practice. And it was a lot worse with MeOmics at the beginning. I found it really stressful, really difficult to really question whether I was the right guy to lead the company. When you're working with senior professors, deep knowledge and understanding of the science. I think you've just got to then rest on some of the techniques I'm going to come on in the presentation and really just kind of rejoice in it, just kind of enjoy it as best you can. If it all goes wrong, at least you will have learnt. You will have learnt. So, good question. Yeah.
Another type on the Boston syndrome. So it's more focused on the mechanism that it activates, not the mental state itself. Because the longer you keep it, the less opportunity you get in. So less network, less jumping in, less expose yourself.
Yeah.
So it's not just the stress, but it's also the actual block.
The impact of it, yeah. I think that's so true, and it's kind of, if you allow it to be debilitating, if you allow it to get in the way, then it can be damaging. If you embrace it and accept it, then it can actually be a positive thing, I think. These are all just opinions as well, by the way. Okay, so managing money. So why do I talk about this in a resilience presentation or resilience talk? I think that the reality is that we live in a world where if you're going to, have you all been exposed to Maslow's hierarchy of needs? And the bottom two here are just in the world that we live in, they're entirely dependent on money, frankly. If you're going to feed yourself, if you're going to feed your family, if you're going to stay safe, you absolutely have to find income which is somewhat greater than your outgoings. And I put it early in the presentation because I think if you don't put your mind to fixing that, if you don't deal with that, then the rest of it is really hard to do because you don't have that fundamental platform to keep yourself healthy, to keep yourself safe and dry. And I'm not, I'm very realist. I've always been very realistic that I'm a couple of mistakes away from being on the street. And I think we all are, So I just think, get the money sorted, If that has to be a job, it has to be a job. If it's a job that you don't like but it pays the rent, do the job that you don't like, pay the rent, and educate yourself and find a job you do enjoy. And what I do with my business interests is I have not paid myself at all with MeOmics, so none of us have paid ourselves any salary. We've not drawn any salary. That's because creating the stem cells is so expensive, so we're spending £250,000 on creating those stem cells, so we just don't have the funding to pay ourselves at all. So I support myself and my family with other business interests and generally doing advisory work, consultancy work for other startups, for other scale-up businesses, exit planning. Those kind of interesting things, and I set my fees based on how interesting the opportunity is. The more interesting it is, the lower my fees become to try to win the work. I just think I'm not going to beat about the bush here, folks. You've got to pay your way, and if you don't, it's going to go wrong sooner or later. And the root of most stress is just running out of money. So, sad but true. I wish there was an alternative answer. Of course, you can tweak by reducing your outgoings, by being very, very tight, by just making sure you get those outgoings down as low as possible. And we've, as a family, have done that to allow me to pursue my entrepreneurial dreams on occasions. So I think it is a balance, but you also just have to find the work to earn the money. I'm going to talk a little bit about relationships and how important they are, and I'm conscious that I'm going slower than I hoped I would, so I'm going to start to canter on a little bit. This is my support unit. This is my lovely family. My wife, Anna Greet, and my son, Kieran, and my daughter, Katie. who I've just come back from Silverstone Museum with Katie, because she's a huge Formula One fan, and they were doing a Girls Go Free, under 18 girls, under 18 women go free in October, so we took the opportunity to do that. If you're not, I don't want to impose a family on anyone and say how, that's the be-all and end-all, not at all. You've got to find your support structure is what I'm saying in this bit. You've got to put effort and time in on fostering relationships. And it's a bit like an onion. So you get the very, very close relationships that you put more effort and more time into, that you are, you accept. You've got to make compromises. You can't expect relationships to just happen. It's give and take all the time, give and take all the time. And work at it is what I would say, because I find you get the rewards, you get the results back. And then out of the outer onion is the looser relationships of people that you can talk with, but you don't have to, really put so much effort into. And then broader the kind of business relationships. But all of these are worth fostering, they're worth building, they're worth developing, because you get the results you really do. You get the support that you need. I strongly believe no person is an island, and that we all need interpersonal connections to develop resilience. And it's in your hands to work at it. It doesn't always work out. We've all had bust-ups and breakups and lost contact, but I think it's definitely worth working at. Families are great too. I'm very lucky. We often, I took a photo around a dinner table in Colucci's, because we love that. We love that restaurant chain. I know it's a chain. But we around the dinner table, we have such great conversations, and no holds barred. We can say anything and have any view, and it's just been beautiful watching the kids grow up, having their opinions and seeing them evolve and develop. And we talk about Formula One a lot, of course, but we also talked a lot about COVID and how that was kind of the very definition of government. And whether they were doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and it was totally open, and we talk about everything, and I think that's a great thing. Yes.
Alasdair, can I just ask, what happens when your time is limited and you say, for example, your business interests start to take more of your time away from being with family and friends? How do you balance that?
Oh, that's such a good question, isn't it? And I know I miss my daughter's birthday on numerous occasions, because it's end of October and that's a busy time for sales. And I was often in the States with my previous startup company, and she was very forgiving. I think it's really just putting the effort in, and we have the Sunday dinner. So Sunday evening we'd always try and be around the table. So at least you're allocating time. And I think a lot of what I'm going to talk about in the presentation is about planning and not just hoping that things happen. My eyesight's getting bad. That's what happens when you get older as well. Your eyesight goes a bit. I would have been able to read that a few years ago. So I think it's just, it really is putting effort in and allocating time to things. I'm going to talk about that a little bit here as well. So I'm going to move into caring for the mind. And a little bit about mindfulness and meditation. Does anyone here meditate at all? Excellent. Oh man, I'm going to be so embarrassed here then, because I was kind of aiming at this to hope that no one meditates, and therefore I'm not going to be embarrassed. But
beginner's mind, Alasdair. Beginner's mind.
Yeah. Okay. So imposter syndrome just suddenly kicked in there big time. I hope you noticed that. So, I'm definitely no guru. I've used Calm, I've used other apps. I think YouTube is fantastic, and you get so many great routes to learn this stuff. And I would just say try it, just explore it. I think caring for your mind is just so important, even above, I haven't put these in any particular order, but maybe subconsciously I'll put this above caring for your body. So what I do, for those who haven't meditated before, I strongly recommend it. I allocate 10 minutes in the morning. I sit on a cushion, cross my legs, close my eyes, and I concentrate. And I concentrate on my chi, your energy in the centre of your body, which I always equate to Iron Man, and that's why he put his power source there. But you can concentrate on your breathing, box breathing. You all know about box breathing. So 4 seconds breathing out, 4 seconds holding, 4 seconds breathing in, 4 seconds holding. Try and do that from deep down in your body if you can. So I concentrate on something. I think about the thoughts that go through your mind, and the clarity comes from going back to the concentration. Everyone gets troubled by thoughts, intrusive thoughts, sometimes negative thoughts, often negative. We don't tend to get those really positive thoughts popping into our mind as often as we'd like. So there was a very nice phrase that someone used that thoughts for us are a bit like rain. When you go outside in the rain, you get affected by the rain. And those thoughts are like the raindrops. They affect you, but they're not you. You are not the rain, So you don't have to think, because I get those thoughts, there's something wrong with me. Mine just does stuff. And I find that by meditating, I clear that out. And I've no science behind this at all, but all I know is when I meditate frequently and often, I feel better. It's as simple as that. So I'm not dumb. I don't do stuff for no reason. It's just I feel better when I meditate on a regular basis. And it doesn't work if I just do it once. I enjoy it, but if I do it frequently, then I just feel better. I feel less stressed. I sleep better. Openness and kindness. And kindness, openness to sounds when you're meditating and not kind of closing yourself off to the world. And kindness, just being kind and particularly being kind to yourself. I think we're all so self-critical. We're self-bully. I do. I definitely self-bully. I just would never speak to other people the way I often speak to myself. It's how I've failed, how I've done that wrong, how I'm running out of money. It's just horrific. And I would never ever say things to other people I say to myself. And I don't know if you share that. I think a lot of people do. So I'm happy to open up about it. Does anyone want to try a bit of meditation? Just 2 minutes. So I'm going to run out of time badly here, but let's just do a minute of closing your eyes and just thinking about nothing. And I'm impressed. Everyone's closed their eyes, so there's good trust here. Think about nothing. And for this little experiment, the past does not exist. The past is irrelevant. And just for a moment, the future doesn't matter. It's of no significance for this couple of minutes that we're just going to think about nothing. And the space that you're now inhabiting, think about what that feels like. And try to just let any other thoughts come and go. I love skiing, so I imagine I'm sitting on a deck chair outside a ski chalet, and those thoughts are just other skiers moving past, and they're not relevant to me. Okay. How does that feel? I'm going to stop there because we're running out of time. But I just wanted to give those of you who haven't meditated just a little flavour of the kind of thing you can easily pick up on YouTube. You can easily get the Calm app or one of the other great apps that's out there, just to give it a try. Okay, I've got a canter on now. I'm going to try and move on quickly. So, caring for your body. I think diet is important. I'm not going to preach. Okay, as you can see, I'm I could definitely lose a few pounds, a few kilos maybe. I personally do intermittent fasting, and I have done since about 2017 maybe. So I do the 16-8, so I go for 16 hours without eating. I don't eat at breakfast. This is 5 days a week. I'm not preaching, I'm not trying to sell this to you at all, each to their own. But for me, again, I've done that for, 5 years now, 6 years. I'm not an idiot. I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it if I didn't feel there was benefit. I don't do it to show off. I just do it because I think it kind of works for me. There's other intermittent fasting. I think that there's another common theme here in that there's plenty of evidence and published scientific evidence that shows that mild stress to your body is kind of healthy. So why do we go to the gym? Why do we go running? Why do we put ourselves under that stress? Because we see benefit. And restricting your diet has been shown to show some kinds of benefits when they've done this experiments with humans and with lab animals. So I just think there's something to be said for being careful about your diet, and you young folk, I mean, you've got years yet, so when you get to my age, you even look at a cream bun and it's just deadly. So you've definitely got time, and this is not something to stress about at all, but I think looking after your diet is a really positive thing to build resilience. I find with intermittent fasting, it gives me control, so I find it a lot easier to eat more healthily when I'm intermittent fasting, because I tend to really value food. I really love it. My wife's a fantastic cook, and if I let her loose, I mean, I would definitely be a different shape. I'd probably be happy as well as I am. I feel like I'm happy, but she's definitely a great cook. But when I'm fasting, oh man, when I get to the evening meal, I'm just so happy to eat that food. And I think there's something to be said for that, but I'm not preaching. If you want to lose weight, calorie deficit, I don't think there's any other answer, frankly, and again, it's only my opinion. I'm not a dietitian. If you do a calorie deficit, do it carefully, eat well, eat healthy, but I think if you really want to lose weight, calorie deficit's the only answer. Fitness, have a schedule, lock it in. You're all young, so good for you, but as you get older, think about more weights. Yes, the aerobic is important. As I get older, I'm thinking about more weight training because it's simple. I want to be able to tie my own shoes when I'm 85, if I'm lucky enough to live that long. So it is practical little things. I want to be able to walk to the shops, and by building muscle and strengthening bone, when you get to my age, it's a good thing to do. Not that you need to worry about that for a while. Lots of walking, lots of cycling. We were talking about healthy spaces and how important they are. Try to work it into your life if you can. Try to schedule it so that you are doing plenty of exercise. Why do I say that? Not because I want to preach, not because I want to show off or say, how healthy I am. Clearly, I'm not that healthy, but it's all about building resilience. I feel stronger. I feel able to deal with the rejection. I feel able to deal with the challenges that the life that I've chosen throws at me if I'm fit, and I try to keep my fitness quite high. And the previous two will help with sleep, so get plenty of sleep, but if you're doing plenty of workout, plenty of fitness, if you're doing mindfulness, I think the sleep will follow, but there are techniques for sleep as well that I'm running out of time, so I've got to move on. Okay, so finding a passion and a purpose. My passion and purpose, that's in the Himalayas. Sorry, didn't give you a chance to guess that one. You probably would have got that one. That's Everest range over there, and I was paddling a river called the Tamor in Nepal. Magnificent, and what a great way to spend your time and your money if you can find a way to get out there. Just, you know, aim to be interested rather than aiming to be interesting. You know, I wish we had time to talk. I hope you all tell me your views as we finish. I'm trying to give us enough time to have a good chat, a good chinwag after this, because I'm really interested in your views. What I've got to offer may or may not be of value to anyone, but I'm definitely interested in learning always. Yeah, I have some other passions as well, skiing and a bit of photography. I try not to measure myself on these things, you know. I'll measure myself on the fitness a little bit, because it kind of gives you a good yardstick. But I think in this world, I try to stay off the socials. Yeah, I know that's probably shouting in the wilderness, maybe. I don't know. I mean, how many of you commonly post on Instagram or no, Facebook? No? Excellent. Delighted to hear it. A little bit. It's all right. I think it's one of those things that's quite addictive, and you've got to be careful, because if you measure yourself up against everyone's best self, you know, no one posts when they're feeling miserable and sad, and you know the real world. They only post when they're on an expensive holiday, or they're feeling extra thin and they've put the filters on and everything. And if you try and measure yourself against that, it's going to impact your mental health. It's going to negatively impact you. So I just try not to. I tend to stay off those, although they're useful and good for kayaking and canoeing and meeting up with people and things like that. But I try to just not doom scroll on what a great life everyone has compared to mine, because that's just a route to being miserable. Yeah, so volunteering's a great thing to find a passion about. But I think what I'm trying to get to here is everything in balance.
So something before going to the next slide, I understand why you said that the passion and purpose is good for us. However, I think it's also good to highlight that not having a passion and purpose is also okay.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad.
Finding a passion and purpose itself, it creates a lot of anxiety.
It so does. I'm so glad you challenged on that, because, you know, I should have said that. This is all optional. I'm not trying to put pressure on anyone here to be anything other than happy. That's the whole message of my deck is I think the only responsibility we've all got is to find some happiness somehow, without putting pressure on that as well. You know, you don't have to. But I think if you take one thing away from this is find your happiness. And that might be lying on the sofa watching the cricket, or it might be just lying on the sofa reading a book, and that's great. Just find yourself, find your happiness. I think, you know, that's what's most important. It distresses me when people are full of anxiety, full of stress, when people are lonely. And being lonely seems to be an epidemic at the moment, and I don't want to put pressure on people to build relationships. I do think there's an element of the theme of mild stress being good for you in the long run. So I think a period of self-reliance, a period of loneliness may not be necessarily the worst thing, if it helps you build better and stronger relationships because you understand yourself better, you've had to spend time with yourself, that you can. So I try to explain that to my family, because that's the experience I've been through, that sometimes you can have a period of loneliness which can actually turn out to be quite a positive thing. Great challenge, thank you so much. I don't want to play. I did not come here to say that I've got all the answers, or to say that you've got to live this way because that's the right way. Not at all. Okay. And with that in mind, everything in balance. Has anyone heard of Ikigai? Yeah, as a methodology. I'm a little bit sceptical about the name and whether they're trying to apply some, Japanese mysticism or Far Eastern beyond what it is. For me, I love the construct. I love the idea of getting everything in balance. That for me kind of describes what I'm trying to share with you here today. So it may be something that's worth another look at. This one's a good photo to give you another challenge on. Where's this photo from? Any guesses? Any guesses? It's quite. Sorry? No. Closer to home. Closer to home.
Cornwall.
South Coast, close enough. Dover Harbour. Dover Harbour. Coming into Dover, isn't that astonishing? Who would have thought it? Great, I'm very proud of that photo. Okay, how do we define success? Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? How do we define success? What is success? What is high performance? I mean, for me, I've given the clues away. I think it's about being happy, for me. Being happy in yourself, trying to make an impact, a positive impact in the world. Trying to make those around you as happy as they can be. Those are my answers. I think in the entrepreneurial world that I'm existing, one of the big challenges, and frankly software sales as well, probably most fields, trying to iron out those highs and those lows. When you have a success like we had in Toronto this last week, that's a great feeling. You're top of the world, you think everything's going great, and then next week you get knocked right back down and you're feeling miserable and you think everything's going wrong and you can't see a way out, and it's really just trying to iron those out and get some middle ground of nothing is ever that bad, and don't ever get high on your own supplies. I like the High Performance podcast, and they always use that at the end. Don't get high on your own supplies, so don't exaggerate the highs and try not to get too low in the lows. I think embracing failure is so important. I've had so many failures, oh my God. And you've just got to get up, and you've just got to learn from them, you've got to just pick yourself up and fight on. Pursuing a failure indefinitely is not a good idea, so you've kind of got to accept when something's just not going to happen. But otherwise, I think just kind of embracing failure and putting your arms around it. We had a call with an investor recently, and we started off the call with one of my academic co-founders saying, "Yes, this is my second startup, and the first one was a disaster." Oh, we couldn't believe it. And luckily the investor was really reasonable about it and kind of explored that, and we talked about it, why did it not work? And there was two of us on the call who just wanted to curl up in a ball. But, it worked out, we think, in the end. We'll see. But it was interesting. I love that line from the poem If, just being able to treat success and failure as the same imposter. I think that's a tremendous way to live your life. So, how have I done? I'm on my last slide. Gosh. Just my closing thought. Enjoy the journey. Don't obsess about the destination. I think to your point, just enjoy the journey. That's so important. And make that journey as exciting or as not exciting as fits with you. Just take time to understand yourself. Just really think about who you are. Are you an optimist? Are you a pessimist? Are you a realist? Just be kind, and especially with yourself. And try not to judge. Just practice. We need more empathy in this world. Everyone's so polarised. Just try to be empathetic. Try to understand people's perspectives and why they're coming from a particular opinion point. You know, and this is as much about how you impact others around you as how you impact yourself. You know, if you want to de-stress, just be empathetic is my view. Get everything in balance, keep exploring, take responsibility for your own happiness and your own well-being. You know, I think that's a good way to live your life. And see happiness as a state rather than I'm going to be happy when we get funded. I'm going to be happy when we exit. You know, I think if I'd be constantly miserable if that was my mindset. Now over to you guys. What do you think?
On the penultimate slide, success.
Yes.
I think we've all grown with this concept that success equals career success,
Wealth.
growth. And how important is to disconnect with these three concepts?
That's such a good question. Thank you.
It's limiting. It's limiting, and of course, success is also to be a good friend, a good member of the community, and not many people look at that.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful question. So relevant, so important. I read a study that said that lottery winners, it was a study of people who had won the lottery and ended up as millionaires. Now, the study found that although there was always a period of elation, lasted 5-6 months after the win, the people who were inherently generally happy, described themselves as generally happy before the lottery win, continued to be generally happy. And those who were generally miserable before the lottery win, after that period of elation, they tended to be miserable again. Now, obviously, it's a lovely story. True, look it up. I'd get an F in this study because I've no references. I've put a couple of quotes up there, but I haven't even referenced the graphics I use, so sorry about that, YouTube. Yeah, apparently it's true. So generally, if money is your idea of success, I think you might be disappointed unless you are of a mindset that, you know, that is what really makes you happy. But I think with the general population, money doesn't tend to make people happy. It tends to just, if you've got too much money, it tends to contribute to stresses and unhappiness. Yeah, I mean, what a horrible world if we just all saw accumulation of financial wealth as a route to happiness. I put it at the beginning of the slide because too little money is a real problem. Too much money is a real problem as well, and I think it's just not pursuing the almighty dollar at the cost of everything else is really good advice, frankly. Great question. Similar with a career as well, which you mentioned. You know, I don't think a career needs to be the be all and end all. Yeah.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, it's the problem with like money. Can that only be a problem for people who have money?
Well, I think not having money is a huge problem. You know, the cost of living crisis has been hugely damaging for so many people around the world and in this country especially. So, as I tried to stress at the beginning, you've really got to get enough money to cover your outgoings, to cover your basic needs of food and accommodation, you know, and travel to work. You absolutely have to have that in order not to run off the rails and hit disaster. In other words, end up on the streets, you know, end up out of your accommodation and just not having anywhere to live and not being able to eat. everyone's got to take responsibility for making sure that doesn't happen, even if that means doing a job that doesn't inspire you for a period, but use that as a motivator to find a career that does deliver what you need for happiness. So I think there's a basic low level. It's funny that I remember Peter Sellers saying that money doesn't make you happy, but it helps, and I think that could be true. That can be true. I think you have to just treat money as a kind of imposter, like Kipling said with success and failure. You treat it with caution. It should not be, I don't think personally, and I'm not prescribing this to anyone, I don't think it should be your end goal is to accumulate wealth. MeOmics, why am I doing this startup thing? Do I want it to be £1 billion company? Yes, I do. Why not? It's a good measure, but that's not the reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it for the impact to society, for what I can learn on the journey, because I was lucky enough to be invited to help. All of those reasons, and if we happen to build a great company that makes a lot of money, I find a lot of entrepreneurs end up giving all their money away. Or most of their money, like the Gates, so many. I'm involved in a thing called Founders Pledge, where I've already said I'll give 10% away as a commitment now before I've even made any money. Doesn't mean anything because I haven't got any money, but at least it's a statement. I think there was one right at the back there, and then you, and then you, and then you. Thank you. This is great. I love these questions. They're so good.
Just with regards to the imposter syndromes.
Yes.
I need to know whether this refers to my situation.
Okay.
I should have been graduating nearly 2 years ago.
Right.
But unfortunately, because I'm a carer, caring for a family member who is really severely ill, and this has impeded my studies.
Yes.
I couldn't continue. And I sit with myself, and then I realize that all my colleagues have, they've all completed their studies, and then I feel that I can't move on. I can't, I just came to a situation that I can't continue. So I don't know whether this refers to my situation, and if yes, how do I overcome this?
So I don't think it's quite imposter syndrome, the situation you're in. I empathise with you, I feel for you, and I want you to be successful. I think you have to just travel your path, and keep fighting to achieve your dream of graduating, And are you still in the course? Are you? Then just find a way, and your success will mean so much more to you because you fought through that adversity to achieve it, I think you just have to dogged determination until you get there and ask for help. I'm a big advocate of asking for help and being open to coaching. I think one of the reasons we were successful in Toronto, despite my imposter syndrome, or maybe because of my imposter syndrome, I'm so open to mentoring and coaching, and one of the things they're looking for is can they coach the team? And if I was the face of the team, I think they obviously came down on the side that they could coach us, and so I would ask for help every opportunity you get, and be willing to accept it, be open to accepting it.
Hi sir, I'm Sachinta. Hi, I'm Sachinta, currently undergraduate at Westminster. I have questions. How does resilience relate to innovation and creativity in the professional world?
It's a great question. I think you have to be resilient in order to be involved in those activities, and to bring something innovative to market, to fruition, takes a lot of resilience. And I didn't major on the startup aspect of this, but all startup founders are resilient. They have to be. they have to take the knocks. You have to roll with the punches. Rejection, we get rejection all the time, and often with no explanation, with no kind of feedback. It's just, and it's quite hard to get the balance right between just saying, so what? Or saying, well, actually, maybe they're rejecting us for this reason or that reason, and then you can learn from it and work on it. But especially when it comes back to the evil of money, especially when you're dealing with money people and people who you're asking for money, you get a lot of knockbacks, especially in this market. The market is really tough at the moment. So resilience in the entrepreneurial world is critical, absolutely critical.
Just going to ask some questions from Slido.
Excellent.
Anonymous participants. So I'll just propose all three of them.
Okay.
If you need a reminder, I'll remind you what they are. So the first one is, when you get overwhelmed, how do you cope? Studying and working can sometimes feel too much. How do you cope with that?
These questions are so good. I love these questions.
Do you want to do them one at a time, Alasdair?
Yeah, just let me answer that one. Unless the others are similar, and then just okay. So this is such a good question, and very much the practical, the kind of practical advice that I want to give. I constantly beat myself up for being lazy. I think I'm lazy. I love to lie on the sofa. I love to do nothing. I love to play on the PS5 and kind of just let time flow past. And I really beat myself up for that. And as I said earlier, I'm such a bully sometimes when I catch myself. And it's less so these days because I've been focusing on the mindfulness and focusing on being a good friend to myself, kind of give myself a shoulder massage and say, no, you're doing all right, you're doing okay. Not that many people would have done what you've done, and just kind of acknowledging that, not everything's perfect, but you're moving in the right direction. And I think when you do feel overwhelmed like that, the most important thing is not to beat yourself up, not to punish yourself, and actually to take time out and just go and lie down, step away from the study, step away from the work at least for a period, because if you're not being productive anyway, because you're feeling overwhelmed, there's just no point in making that worse by constantly forcing yourself to fight and battle through it. I know that's easier said than done when things are looking grim and you've got deadlines and you've got to get stuff done, but sometimes just switching off is just really healthy and just finding a way to relax.
I don't know who asked that question, but when I was studying and working at the same time, I felt very, very overwhelmed. I normally used to take a cold shower very quickly and speak with my best friend. And then that's it, like for an hour and a half, and then I was done.
I love that. And this constant exploring, I think, is so important. I've only just started to switch the shower on cold at the end of the shower every morning, and I love it. It's a new thing for me. My mum told me about it decades ago. Before you do, can you ask your question now?
I was going to ask, we talk about a lot of different things, how we should be passionate and et cetera, et cetera. And if you find yourself in a situation where you're studying and working and then trying to build some passion, and what would your key kind of component be, not to spread yourself too thin across everything? How do you balance it?
Yeah, another great question, and I don't have any magical answers. Sometimes life deals you a hand where you've just got to put other things to one side. Because I sell myself as an advisor, over the summer from May to August, I was working 3 different engagements at the same time. So I was working 7, and I knew I could see it like the north face of Everest, appearing out of the mist as I travelled towards it. And I thought, this is going to be grim. but at least I could see beyond it, you know, and I literally worked 7 days a week for like 3 months, and long days as well, to get through that, to earn some money to put in the bank, to keep me going until I win some more work, so that I can continue with my passions of MeOmics and other startup work and going kayaking, going canoeing and doing all of that stuff. But obviously all that had to kind of be put on hold. So I think there are times where you've just got to do the work, you know, you've just got to find a way. But otherwise, having an end date to that is important, so it's not endless. So you say, okay, well, I'm going to really knuckle down for this period, but at the end I can see light. And also, when you are in that steady state, that you do a schedule. So you say, right, Saturday morning I'm going to go for a run, or you know, Wednesday afternoon I'm going to do something else, or for me it's I'm going to lift weights in the morning and I'm going to meditate, and that's kind of in my diary. So I think it is a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of agility, a little bit of scheduling, and really just trying to remember the mission, which is to be happy in life. So if whatever you're doing is not making you happy, as long as you can afford to stop doing it and find something which will progress you to a happier state.
One of the other online questions was around, and I think it links to your find a network, find a support network, yes. And it's around the inspirations for you and also mentors.
Yeah.
What do you look for in people that inspire you? And also, you talked a lot about seek support. What do you look for in the people that can support you, mentor you?
That's great. Another great question. I mean, really, if they're willing to help, you know, as much as I look for is, we've got these fantastic mentors from Canada who are going to, I think, be hugely helpful to us. I don't have a formal mentor at the moment, actually. I've had them in the past, but I just I don't happen to have one at the moment, but I'm always looking out for people that can help. And what I look for is just if they're open-minded, if they're willing to give a bit of time and a bit of advice. And, you know, I have a number of informal mentors I'll listen to, get their perspective. It's a great question as well. How many people have a mentor? A couple of people. Mentors are good things. Try and get one.
Hi. So, my name is Rakul. I'm a second-year marketing student, and I just have a question that, you know, you mentioned you were in States, you were in Everest, and you were in Toronto, and you were born here. So when did all this happen? Like, you know,
I was actually born in India.
Oh,
as
okay.
It happens, yeah,
in
in Gujarat, because my dad was teaching there. So my dad's a climber, and he was climbing in the Himalayas, but more in Western Himalaya. That photo was more in the east. Yeah, I mean, I went to comprehensive school in the northeast of England, so, you know, quite not a privileged background at all. Really happy to be accepted here.
Thank you.
So a question that covers a bit financial well-being that you discussed in the entrepreneurial journey. How much of your financial stability well-being would you put at risk when you want to bring back financial, entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah.
In my case, I'm very eager to start an entrepreneurial journey, but I find myself like with 5-6 years of employed work, and I'm putting money for a possible deposit of a flat.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I could risk that. And the lady next to me will probably
such a great question. Yeah.
I mean, this kind of dilemma, would it work, or is it fluctuate and trust the time and put some money and have a personal objective, like buying a house or feeling a bit more settled?
Such a good question, another great question. I tried to touch on it. I tried to touch on it at the beginning with the money slide. You've got to look after those first two levels of hierarchy of needs. So, I mean, there is a school of thought that says never commit more than 10% of your net worth. I think that's a horrendous amount of money for anybody to consider gambling 10% of their net worth. So I don't subscribe to that, but that would be an absolute ceiling for me. I would look at it much more from a perspective, how do I survive? How do I pay for the roof over the head, for the food that we need to eat? And me pursuing this entrepreneurial dream, how do I do it in a way which minimises the risk of having to take on debt and having to risk losing your accommodation and having to move to different accommodations. So it's for me, it's much more about having a personal financial plan and going way over on the pessimistic end of the scale and just think about the worst case of a collapse of the economy, of your dream being a myth, a mirage, and just really get into that pessimistic mindset and say, what if? And that may stop you from doing it, or you may say, well, if this happens, I've got this to fall back on. So try and find ways of earning reasonable money quickly and easily.
Another question is quite connected.
Yeah.
And try to be quick. So I find myself in a situation where I have a lot of time because my employed job is becoming repetitive.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So is time in this case more worth it than like having a job that will require me more time to take on the desk and maybe gives me a bit of more money, or is probably more precious for me to have more time to research and investigate possibly the entrepreneur journey and at the same time covering my bills because I'm still paid and doing my ordinary job. So it's like
it's a hard one, isn't it? I think you have to kind of make those personal balances of decision making based on a number of factors. I think having a chunk of time to really plan something out is very valuable. I would definitely stay with that as long as you can, as long as you need to get a really, really robust plan and do a lot of the work that a startup needs to be done on someone else's dime, if you can do it without getting fired and without upsetting anyone. Because that work's got to be done, and if you can do it when you're being paid, then that's a good thing. Then if you need to earn some money more quickly to be able to build up a reserve, which I strongly recommend, in a savings account, high interest that you can't access easily is a really good idea as that buffer in case everything goes wrong. Then you might need to then swap jobs to something that pays more.
Thank you.
Is there a time when you thought something, like you really thought something you believed in, and others didn't necessarily buy into it? It ended up being a success. And how that helped with your resilience?
I can think of many more failures. But I'm for example, I was talking about an interim piece of work that I did for a software company. And it's probably a bit technical for you, but there's a couple of ways of selling software. One is is on a perpetual license basis where you sell the license and they keep it forever and they maybe pay a little bit of maintenance. That's a kind of old model which is discredited and defunct. And then the modern model is something known as software as a service, where you sell it on a subscription basis. You don't own the software, but you pay the subscription and you can use it. And it's more healthy for both the recipient of the software and the vendor, actually, although not all companies see that. And it's particularly hard for the salespeople because the perpetual license model really exists to pay the seller's commission, believe it or not. And it's really an unhealthy and outmoded, outdated way of selling software, way of doing software business. Every time I go to a company, I will stand firm and say, I'm not going to be involved in perpetual software sales. I think it's a flawed construct and eventually it will fail. And therefore, I stand firm on subscription, a subscription model. I've had to stand firm on that a couple of times, and I always get proved right in the end. So,
almost as if that software model is replicating life.
Yeah.
Buying in something or refreshing it every year.
Yeah, I mean, God knows how long how it's survived that long, because it is an evil construct. It's quite evil. But I think it was all to do with people's lack of understanding of how software is made and how expensive it is to maintain. And the more challenges we get with security, the more important it is to be on a subscription model and not buy something which is inevitably going to be defunct within a few months, probably. So, but yeah, sorry, it's a very technical one, probably not the best answer, but I think you have to be true to your values. You have to stand up for who you are and make your position. And sometimes that is agreed with, sometimes it isn't. I recommend standing firm. Listening as well, of course, taking advice as well. Any more questions? One more? Yeah, excellent.
I would like to start off by saying thank you for a fantastic presentation. It was quite insightful. My question is in two sections. The first section is, do you feel that failure contributes a lot towards imposter syndrome? And secondly, what kind of mindset does one need to have in order to manage failure?
Fantastic questions again, thank you. Yeah, I mean, yes, coming off the back of a failure, I think inevitably turns the knob up on imposter syndrome, turns the dial on imposter syndrome, for sure, because it just contributes to that self-doubt. It contributes to the stress of being in a situation where you're trying to do something that did not go well last time. I think just embracing it is important, and the mindset you spoke about is really trying to focus on the learning. Trying to focus on what you learned from the failure, trying not to replicate it. Although I was lucky enough to listen to the guy who founded Charles Dwight, the shirt manufacturer. Can't remember his first name now, but fantastic guy. And it's not Charles Dwight, by the way. Those are his middle names. I mean, he had numerous failures, and the same failure twice or nearly, and or 2 or 3 times, and that must really hurt. When you feel like you've fallen into the same trap. But he's embracing it, and I don't think he'll do it another time. I think he's kind of old and wise enough to know what not to do in that context. But these are hard things. You know, these are things that very, you know, not a lot of the population do, very few. And embracing those failures is important, and just learning as much as you possibly can and not beating yourself up. It's been a very kind audience. Very, very
so much. I think we've run out of time, sorry.
Yeah.
Have you got time for one more?
Yeah, one more, quick one.
What, according to you, would be the qualities that one should possess to have a successful career? Probably move you to the next step, or, you know?
Good question. Hard one. I mean, hard work. I didn't mention work very much in this because I think it is a sensitive subject that I didn't want to kind of pollute this. I think to do anything you have to work hard. To do anything interesting you have to put a shift in. You have to put the effort in. To succeed in academia you have to put the work in. And there's no getting away from that, unfortunately. I think caring for yourself in that context is important, but you have to put the work in. And then I would say being open, you know, listening and watching, reading and listening and watching and talking to people and listening to what they have to say when you ask them questions when they mentor you. I think these are crucial aspects of what makes people successful. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's been truly wonderful. I just really appreciate your humbleness. And what I've really got is you offer such a wonderful buffet of ideas that you guys can pick and choose from, and not all will resonate with you. And maybe just a thought about making your own. So I really appreciate your...
That's such a great way of putting it. Thank you.